Johnson. How are you doing?
We're doing good. We're doing good, Andy.
It's another time together, second session on resilience. And today we're going to be talking about resilience and nutrition.
Yep.
So we're looking at you have been doing quite a lot of research on that topic, and I'm very excited to hear your views on why nutrition food is relevant to resilience. Okay,
Yep.
so as we build this, as you like, the resilience playbook, so nutrition is part of it. So why nutrition and food is relevant? Let's start talking about that. Why is that relevant to becoming resilient?
Okay. Well, the issue of resilience, as you know, is something that people think of it as a developmental sort of issue. So that you and I, nobody's born going, "Wow, I am resilient. It's fantastic. I'm bulletproof. I can withstand the trials of life and all of that sort of not so nice stuff." But so that's one side of it. The other side of it is that you have this thing where we talk about food, we talk about health, and the link between the two is not often that clear. So if I tell you, "Hey, Andy, tell me about your food," you will start telling me about dieting, and you'll start telling me about, "Hey, I'm eating this and I'm losing weight," and that creates the problem. The
Okay.
problem is that, yeah, people think of food and they think of diet.
Okay. And
But
that's about that. Sorry,
that
I'm gonna.
that's not a bad thing in itself if you're trying to lose weight.
Mhm.
But resilience is long term, and food is long term. And
Okay.
the link between the two is often we either don't know it or we forget it. And so this whole idea of what you put into your mouth, you put into your body, how does that affect your mind? How does that affect your mood? How does it affect your sleep? How does it affect your creativity? All of this is linked to resilience.
Right. Very interesting. You saying that. So basically, whatever you put inside of your mouth will shape who you are,
Exactly.
your habits, or your mood, or your decisions, how you
Exactly.
relate to other people, your environment. It shapes all your life.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I think it's important to re-examine the nutrition part of it, looking to see how is it that this affects your resilience.
So let's talk a little bit about biochemistry, and I think you've done also some research on that. The serotonin and cortisol levels, and how is that also important, and what is the link between nutrition and resilience and your biochemistry?
Okay, so um, what we found nowadays is that the two key um, hormones that we have in our body. There are loads of them, but one of the two key ones I want to focus on today is serotonin, which is kind of like your happy hormone. Okay, that when you have high levels of serotonin, you are happier, your mood is elevated, and where we've now discovered is like, hold on, this thing that works in your brain, 60% of it is produced in your gut. So you're thinking, yeah, it's something that's working in your body, but most of it is produced in your gut. And your gut is related, the stuff that's producing it is your microbiome.
Mhm.
And I think we touched on it before. I said, well, your microbiome is actually the bacteria in your gut. So you have bacteria in your gut that's producing serotonin that affects how you feel, and what you feed yourself affects your microbiome. So that's the sort of link where, in terms of uh, the biochemistry of it, the physiology of it, the bacteria, etc. Is there's a link that goes from the food you put in to your moods, and your moods affect your ability to be resilient.
So that will be so that the biochemistry of your body, so how you balance those hormones, will also have an influence in terms of your decision making, your
Yep.
thinking process,
Yep.
the motivation that you have throughout the day, the decisions that you make when you at work or traveling or at home, and even
Exactly.
those decisions of what you're reaching out for to
Yeah.
grab for your food, that immediately will have an effect on everything that you're processing inside of you in your mind and let's say your
Absolutely.
thinking.
Absolutely. And the other key hormone is cortisol. Cortisol is what's known as the stress hormone. And we think of stress and you think, oh, stress, oh, awful, etc., etc. But the thing is, without stress in your life, you will not be able to survive. You need some level of stress to move you forward, to drive you to do something. The problem arises where you have too much stress. So a little bit of stress is good, but when it's too much, it becomes chronic. And that's the problem that modern society have, that our stress levels are so high that we are unable to relax. You're unable to relax, and again, it comes back down to where your resilience starts to. It's like somebody is constantly beating you up, constantly, and that stress level, that hormone level, is affecting you in terms of inflammation. That so they now move on to inflammation,
So,
where
so I would like to hear a little bit more about stress and inflammation, and if you could explain a little bit more. But just before, for
yeah,
someone who is listening or watching us right now, um, the important aspect is to pay attention uh, on what they are eating or their choices for food
yeah,
and the time of the day, how long for, the amount of food, all that. It's
yeah.
important for us to pay attention in order to build better lives. That's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. So let me go on to
Good.
um, sugar, for example, or fast foods. Now, let's say it's now 12 o'clock and you've been working for four hours straight and you need a break and your sugar levels have dropped, which is natural. Okay,
Mhm.
and you reach for, I don't know, a Coke, um, packet of crisps, chocolate biscuit. Now, as soon as you take something like that, what happens is that the sugar in these foods, they give your brain that buzz. You get this spike of energy. Okay. And that's the thing, that the foods, the processed foods that most of us are subject to, they're designed to give you that buzz. The problem is the buzz is a split second buzz. Your blood sugar goes up, your moods goes up, your energy goes up, and the next thing that happens, as you know, if you've ever been on a roller coaster, it comes all the way back down. And it doesn't come down to where you started, it comes below where you started. So those foods, the crisp, the processed food, etc., give you the buzz, and then you come so low down that it is worse than when you started. So that um, doesn't help with the stress we're looking at. Your stress actually goes worse, way down more because of that food you're eating. Does that kind of make sense to
That
you?
is absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And I think all of us have experienced that.
Yeah.
And I think if you also have teenage children, you might experience that, they go to school and then they get all these monster drinks and sugar and they go throughout the day and you get all messed up even when they go to bed in the night, and then their sleep patterns, it affects everything.
Yep.
And then suddenly they say, "Oh, I'm bored. Oh, I can't stand that. Oh," so those affects, it affects a teenager in a very, very bad way. I think talking about sugar and all the sugar we have in products these days, and it affects adults also, affects all of us. But it's clearly saying in a teenage when they go and then eat nothing for hours and then immediately reach out to an energy drink,
Exactly.
or and you see those levels are spiking. So let's go back to stress and inflammation. Can you explain a little bit more for us? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so when your body is stressed, when you have cortisol, so the cortisol causes and your body is, how shall I put it, more likely to become inflamed. Like I said, the inflammation. Let's go back another step. Let's say you cut yourself. You're walking along, you trip and you cut yourself, you fall over. What happens in your body is what's called an inflammatory response. So you'd look and you'd see you start to bleed. And then when the bleeding stops, your skin goes a bit red, it goes a little hot, might be a little painful. That's inflammation. Stress does the same sort of thing, but internally.
Okay.
So like I said to you, short term is good. Long term, continuous inflammation is bad. The link then between stress and inflammation, the next link on is food. So there are certain foods which are pro-inflammatory.
Mm.
Red meat, for example, has been found to be pro-inflammatory. So I'm not.
Wait a minute. You're telling all of us in South America, all South Americans out there, like the barbecue, the churrasco, and
yeah,
red meat is pro-inflammatory.
Correct. It is. I'm sorry to say that, because as a omnivore, I've grown up eating meat, eating chicken, all that sort of stuff, and I think, wow, it's fantastic because it tastes good. And I'm not saying that everybody should stop eating meat, because this is it's a complex situation.
Those are extremes, right? It's not only stopping. It's not about stopping. It's how much you also eat. Just pausing you right there, just on a note, I have noticed that when I eat meat, I'm one person, and when I'm not eating meat, I'm another person. So right now I'm on more like a vegetarian lifestyle. I have gone through all stages and I've tested everything because I like to understand how my body reads these. So, and understand what is good, what is bad for me, and the amount of food. So I do all types of testing. So, but after years, I realized that not having meat for me is much better. I'm a better person. I feel much more alive being mostly vegetarian. I'm not 100% because I still eat products with eggs, or sometimes I love fish, for example. But the red meat is out completely. No pork, no chicken, no beef, no nothing about that. But I realize I'm much happier than when I'm eating red meat, even though my whole life was around, coming from South America, around red meat. But that is a realization that each individual must come to, right? By listening to what the body is telling them. And by finding out, by doing their own research. But surely, it's very interesting to say about the link between red meat and pro inflammatory conditions, which I have never come across before, but very interesting point.
Yeah. So we could at another point do another deep dive into the mechanism by which meat, particularly red meat, um, produces. I hesitate to use the phrases without explaining it, but it's like there's something called TAMO, which is inflammatory, that red meat produces. Okay, and the idea that this not only is pro-inflammatory, but anything that is pro-inflammatory for too long also tends to go towards the direction of pro-cancerous. That's a long way down the line. So I won't go into that too much today. But what I will come back to is the idea of sugar. So the food industry, for example, now has sort of, is driven by cost. The food industry says, well, can we produce more food at a cheaper cost? So what they've done is they've produced this sugar called high fructose sugar. HFCS, I think, is the phrase they use for it. High fructose content sugar. And they've altered the chemical nature of sucrose and fructose, so where you now have more fructose in your sugar. What that does is it makes food a lot sweeter. And that altering of it affects us in a way that is not that easy to understand or not that clear. Because one, you don't know what you're taking. Two, it has an effect that is slow, but definitely heading in a particular direction. So high sugar content spikes your blood sugar, makes you more prone to develop diabetes, more likely to get obese, more likely to put on weight, increases things like brain fog. And here's the kicker, that at the end of all of this, down the line, these things put you at a disadvantage in terms of your resilience. Anything that causes you to feel more sluggish, to where your brain doesn't function as well, that you have problems sleeping, that increases your chances of diabetes, are pushing you in a direction that you don't want to go.
So if we talk about healthy eating habits, what you're saying is that the whole food industry, it's a major, let's say, challenge for people, right? Because most things are not produced with the welfare, the wellness of the person, right? It's for cost savings or increased profit. Correct. That stands on our way to our choices in our healthy eating habits, to choose and to know what to choose.
Yep.
In a jungle of wild products out there that will probably not be good for us.
Yep.
But is it also true to say that the same industry is also shaping the habits of individuals? Would you say so?
It definitely shapes the habits that we all face, because take America, for instance, there is a food standards agency, and there are people who are determining what is the strategy that we should be telling the population or encouraging the population for healthy eating. Now, it may surprise you to know that on those boards are people from the food industry. You might find, and I'm not saying this is the case, but you might find that the chairman of McDonald's on the same board that determines what is the strategy for this country to have healthy eating habits. Now, I'd suggest that there might be a little bit of a conflict of interest going on here, because they're trying to sell a product which actually is not in the best interest of the population as a whole.
Mm. And the interesting bit, I don't want to name and shame here anybody. I mean, I still make use of some products that a lot of people within healthy, let's say, healthy food, health nutrition would say, "Oh, well, how can you do that?"
Yeah.
But um, even within the healthy, the wellness, healthcare wellness industry, there's a lot of products that you would not probably vouch for. Like, well, wait a minute, you still have a lot of sugar in here.
Yeah.
So even within that, let's say rising, growing movement, there are quite a lot of products that are not necessarily the best products in the world for you.
That's without a doubt, it's true, because um, because sometimes it comes down to your strategy. So unless you have a great desire to delve into the nutritional world, the food production, the food manufacturing world, most of us don't have time for that. Okay, so these things will exist. Plus the fact that 30 years ago, the 1970s, we used to demonize fat. And then so say, oh, if you eat fat, you'll get fat. Now, that is a bit more nuanced than that. So when that message was being put on to people, we thought, right, great. As the food industry, I will come up with products that are low fat, but not saying that low fat equals higher sugar. And low fat equals higher sugar, which equals cheaper sugar, which is where the high fructose corn syrup came in.
Mm.
So these things are going on, but we don't actually know that's going on. Nobody's actually telling you these facts. Nobody knows the history. And like I said to you, the point is, well, unless you're really, really interested, you're not going to know.
I think that'll be very interesting if there is a graphic out there that anyone watching us, or you could send or comment or get in touch with us to see the rise of those processed high sugar content.
Yeah.
If the curve also would match the curve of the increase in depression, in mental illness, in all type of, let's say, problems that we have today in terms of mental and healthcare and resilience. If that would be like a something that could show that increasing consumption also within along many time along time, along many years, if that also equates to the increase of more depression or anxiety or mental illness and mental health problems that we have today. I know that because coming from also higher education and teaching students, and you see that in the UK, for example, that is a high percentage, I think it's over 80% now, of students have been diagnosed with some sort of mental illness, of mental health issues along the spectrum, from very, very minor to very serious ones. So it'll be interesting to understand and to see if that correlates to the growth in consumption of this type of products. Yeah. So moving on now, I just want to ask you a question, or if do you think people are eating better or worse now during COVID-19? Is there any correlation of food also and food consumption during this time?
Yes, there are. There's the COVID symptoms survey, which is an app that 1.6 million users are participating, has found that in the UK, the weight of the nation on average has gone up by 1.6 to 6.6 pounds.
Wow.
In 1 year. Now, if you multiply that, because this is an acceleration, we as the UK has been described as the fat man of Europe, because there are over 40 I think 48% was the last figure I saw of people who are overweight within the UK. And what the latest survey has found is that the main reasons during COVID times is that snacking has gone up by about 35%.
Wow, it's
The
unbelievable.
reduced physical activity, which is not surprising because you're meant to stay in your own home, is dropped by 34%. The gyms have shut. Alcohol has gone up by 27%.
Mm-hmm.
And there is people are having a less healthy diet. So that the diet, the health of your diet has gone down by about 20%. So when you add all of these things up, you're more likely to put on weight, you're more likely to feel sluggish, you're more likely to have heartburn, which means you're more likely to feel problems sleeping at night. And this, coming back to where we're at, affects your resilience, your ability to think clearly, to do things clearly, your moods, etc. All of this feeds into your resilience ability.
Absolutely. Very interesting. So how can someone improve their eating habits, even now having, without the context where we're living now, but let's say we're going to move, hopefully, to a better place, but how can someone now start by improving their eating habits? And I want you to ask you to talk a little bit about that. Perhaps we're going to move to that subject in another time, but where fasting and time restricted feeding fits into it.
Yep. I think it's important to be realistic, to be practical in this, and not leave you thinking, oh, I'm doomed. So one of the first things I like the work of Michael Pollan, for example, who's a writer, and he talks about food.
I've read a couple of his books.
Yeah. So
very good.
One of the key practical things that he said that I think makes a lot of sense is when you go to the supermarket, go around the outside aisles more than you go around the inside aisles.
I remember that.
Because the outside aisles is where you will find the natural foods. You will find the fruit and the veg. Usually the first thing you come to in the supermarket, you'll find the whole foods, etc., the milk, the butter, the sugar, the cheeses, the meat if you want, all on the outside generally. And on the inside aisles, you will find the ready meals. You will find the crisps. You will find, so as a principle, stick to the outside. Buy more of your food on the outside aisles than the inside aisles. Because most of us are not going to go vegan. Most of us are not going to go vegetarian, though I do believe there are benefits to that. But I'm not here to convert everybody into vegetarian or vegan, even if my own belief is that this is better for us. So on a practical level, this would help. I think avoiding caffeine in the afternoons or limiting your alcohol intake, because this is important not just from food and mood, but also sleep. So these things affect how you sleep at night. And in terms of resilience, sleep is another topic that we'll cover at some point that is so key. Certain foods that you have in the evening contain an amino acid called tryptophan. You find tryptophan in things like oats, tofu, turkey, oily fish, and beans. And what tryptophan, again, talking in terms of biochemistry, tryptophan is an amino acid, contributes in a big way to the production of melatonin. And melatonin is a thing that regulates your sleep cycle. The more you can do that, the more likely you are to be able to build up your resilience. Another important piece to practically is mindful eating. Most of us, if we eat in front of the TV, years ago I used to eat in front of the TV, you have no idea what you're putting into your mouth. You have no idea when you're full because you keep eating, and you have no idea of the taste of it.
Absolutely.
So, in practical terms, anything that you can do to increase your awareness of these things increases your ability to know when you're full, to stop before you overeat, and then to enjoy. And this is all
That's
part.
a very important thing, isn't it? To enjoy, pay attention, enjoy.
Exactly.
What is around you, what are you experiencing, who you're sharing that with, and that goes going back thousands of years, of ancestors. There was all this almost like a ceremonial around food and sitting and sharing.
Yep.
And exchanging stories and storytelling and entertaining themselves. And I think we lost that.
All of that is a key part of a lot of cultures. The French culture around food, the Italians, yes, they sit for hours, around food. And so that ties into the other part, the social part of who you are. Sharing, like you say, the stories, the good stories, having a laugh, having a bit of red wine, a joke. I think all these things relax us, and it builds into your ability to withstand when things are not too great.
We are almost finishing this time, Johnson. I'm very excited because there are a lot of topics coming up, like mindfulness, for example, and meditation, sleep and resilience, the control, and there are many areas that we're going to explore in this series. But I just wanted to finish with, I think food, and also the lack of food and restricting food is also key. Not only what you eat, but what you don't eat, and the choices that you make throughout the day, and the window in which you are eating. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so
For us to finish.
We all have what's called a circadian rhythm. In other words, you tend to go to sleep at anywhere from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock. We all tend to get up somewhere between 4 and 9 o'clock. So our body is attuned to the sunshine. It's attuned to the clock, the clock of the sun, not the clock of time as such. We all have that rhythm that goes on, and your food, actually, your body has what's called a circadian rhythm, not just in your brain, but in your pancreas. Your pancreas, which produces insulin, has a clock to it. So if, for example, you're going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, and your pancreas, which has its own clock, is saying, okay, no more food, I'm not producing any more insulin. And you shovel down something that's heavy, that's stodgy at 9 o'clock at night, and your pancreas is just saying, no, I'm not producing any more insulin. That's when we're more likely to put on weight, because we're not using it. Your body is going to sleep, but you're putting food down your stomach. So it's the opposites going on. And so there's a movement now called time-restricted eating. There's a lot of research on time-restricted eating that helps us to come back to what we would have done naturally, many generations ago. That helps with sleep, that helps with your resilience. And this, I think, is something that we need to relearn again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be really good to have a whole talk with you on that in another episode. So thank you very much for your time, guys. Thank you for watching. please subscribe to our channel, like and share with your friends, and also help us to build this movement, the resilient movement. More than ever, we need that, resilient minds, strong mindset, and people that can together coming as a community to overcome difficult times that we are living now during the pandemic, and also to really assert ourselves that we have a better future together. Thank you very much. Thank you, Johnson.
You're welcome. See you next time.
See you next time. Thank you.